again from Eastbourne Council Watch. Last week I was delighted to have 2 requests to speak in Council accepted, one at the Scrutiny Committee and one in Cabinet. Sadly, the first one was cancelled as there were too many cuts in spending to be scrutinised. So at the Cabinet meeting, we firstly had a question from the local eco-action group calling on the Council to go plant-based in their catering, which is 2 vending machines. So no more Kit Kats with your cup of tea then. I'll put this on a separate video. Then we had another hour of scrutiny on council cuts before I was called to speak. Unfortunately, the eco-action group got bored and left. I'd have liked to hear their howls of protest as I launched into why we should abandon all their pet projects. Also absent was our Cabinet member for Net Zero. So I got a reply from someone on screen who maintained that they'd already answered my question in the past. Pity I had no right of reply. Here's the video, onwards and hopefully upwards.
Move on to now item number 8, which is Eastbourne Carbon Neutral 2030, the annual progress report. I'm aware that Councillor Murray isn't here this evening, but I know we've got officers ready to respond. So, Mrs. Stannard, if you'd like to come up to the mic, thank you.
Good evening. It's a pity that the Net Zero report wasn't included at the scrutiny meeting, as it really does need scrutiny, rather than blind implementation according to government diktat. Once again, we come to EVs and solar panels used to reduce emissions at Airborne. I've spoken about these before, but clearly my words fall on deaf ears and may do so again. So we save some of that apparently nasty carbon dioxide going into the local atmosphere, but we don't consider the disastrous environmental and human costs, as well as greater emissions, created by the manufacture and transport of these items. It seems that in the impossible nightmare of getting to net zero, workers in faraway lands are not worthy of consideration. And as governments mandate quotas for EVs, which fewer people are buying, companies like VW want to pay their workers less in order to avoid bankruptcy. Meanwhile, a solar station in Wales is destroyed by Storm Dara, not a unique event. And before you think, oh, that just shows that climate change is causing more extreme weather events, IPCC scientists show no human-caused increase in these. Still believe what Mad Miliband is telling you? Still believe what you hear on the BBC? The use of HVO in the generators at Airborne is not sustainable, being linked to increased global food prices and driving the expansion of palm oil cultivation in Asia. Result, deforestation and peat destruction, thus exceeding any benefit from the displacement of fossil fuels. So before you say, oh, but even if climate change isn't a problem, we'll have a much cleaner planet, just think about it. Our beautiful countryside covered in solar panels, forests decimated, peat bogs destroyed. I could go on, but you won't give me the time. Here are some of the things you may not know, but as you're blindly following the government's green agenda, you really should. The IPCC estimates that the UK getting to net zero would make a difference of 0.0007 degrees centigrade. The current figure for the UK to reach net zero is £1 trillion. CO2's ability to cause warming is inversely logarithmic. IPCC models exaggerate warming on average 2.5 times the actual temperature. Observations show that ice extent in the Antarctic has been growing slightly, calling into question some climate modelling. The Milankovitch cycles. The hockey stick graph is a proven hoax. The UK Met Office invented temperature averages from over 100 non-existent measuring stations. The phony claim of 97% climate consensus is mere political rhetoric aimed at stifling debate. CO2's ability to warm is tiny because its effects on Earth's heat flow are saturated. And a question: why have you pledged support for the Climate and Nature Bill without consulting or informing your constituents? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Stallard. I will ask our officer to present the report whilst I consider any response, but thank you for coming and presenting tonight. So,
the comments made just before I spoke, I will just say that we have answered questions similar to this in the past, and that we do go on the consensus of opinion throughout the scientific community, and we err on the side of caution. We would like to lead by example, the council, the borough and the country, and to do that we do have to transition to a low carbon economy. But we do have to, I fully take on board the comments about transportation and production, and the council is working to understand these are called scope 3 emissions, and we are working very hard to work out what our scope 3 emissions are, and once we have a better handle of what they are, we'll be in a better position to be able to reduce them in the future. Thank you.
Mrs. Stallard, I know you made some points there. In terms of the report going to scrutiny, you actually sat next to the chair of scrutiny, so perhaps have a quiet word with her just before you leave, or follow up with her, I'm sure. I know there's a busy level of scrutiny. I can see Councillor Shaw shaking her head, but I'm sure shaking her head in eagerness and excitement, and something that Councillor De Cara suggested as well, could be a working group, that this could be looked at. And again, our officers, we do have working groups that could be set up. I think we allow and budget for at least 2 a year, and that could be something that the scrutiny group want to look at further and answer some of those points that you have raised. Our view, my view certainly, is that the steps taken by Eastbourne Borough Council are at the moment pragmatic and proportionate, and Councillor Diplock spoke there a little bit with regards to developments such as Lancer Court and other things we've done in terms of solar, which has reduced costs, particularly for those residents who might be struggling at present. With regards to the increased use of HPO, I'd be inclined somewhat to agree with you, which is no solution is 100% there yet, and I appreciate that we need to move towards an alternative use of fuel there, but I'm also not convinced that it's right for us to keep using diesel, petrol and normal forms or fossilised fuel forms of power for our vehicles, not least because of the costs, but also because of, I believe, the damage caused to the environment. But I know we have different views with regards to that. Any other comments from colleagues in terms of the annual progress report? In that case, are we happy to approve this? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Mrs. Stallard, again for speaking and for your time this evening.
I think we should have an answer to why you are backing the CAN bill in Parliament without informing or consulting with your constituents.
I'm happy for a response to follow this meeting. Thank you.